You are listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS, and my guest is here, Mr. Edgar Winter. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Oh, man. Do you live in L.A.?
Yes, I do.
How long you been here?
Beverly Hills. Since about 1990.
Yeah. I've been here 35 years.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
I live in Beverly Hills, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I'm from Texas originally, and then moved to New York right out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife, Monique, and I, who we've been married now for 39 years, and she talked me into moving out to L.A. So
Yeah.
I'm a New York Texan living in Beverly Hills.
But you like it here?
I love it, yes.
You
do.
don't want to go back to Texas?
No, I'm not going back to Texas. You know, I thought it was going to be strange, and I really love New York, the energy of it. But after being out here, it's just so scenic and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's really laid back, and I'm very, very happy here.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you.
You know what? I saw you guys when I was like 16 years old at White City Stadium in Shepherd's Bush in London. Do you recall that gig? I know when people say to me, "Yeah, I saw you in blah blah blah." I'm
was
like, "Yeah."
this with
okay.
Johnny, or was it with my own band?
No, it was with you and Rick Derringer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I remember him playing. You played Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and he played that solo in it, and I'm like, "Wow, what is that?" I was like young, I didn't really get it, but it was like flash. It was like amazing.
Oh yeah, Rick, very versatile and exciting guitar player. It was great playing with him.
Yeah. How did you come up with the what's that instrument called where the piano that you're holding? What's it called?
Well, it's a synthesizer.
And you just decided to put a strap on it.
Exactly. I just happened to be the first guy to get the idea of putting a strap on the keyboard. And I think pre-synthesizer, they were so heavy. Like, I remember this one keyboard, a Univox, it weighed like 40 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just walking through the music store, and I saw these new synthesizers. And there was a Moog, which was all one big clunky unit. But the ARP 2600 had a remote keyboard, and then the brain or the guts of the instrument with this mad scientist-looking contraption with all kinds of cool knobs and sliders. And I just looked at the keyboard and I said, "Wow, it looks like you could just put a strap on that and play it like a guitar." Yeah, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, nothing like a strap on.
Yeah.
But then Hartman was in your band too.
Yes.
He was playing bass at the time, right? Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And, you know, that band was a massive talent search, actually. Yeah. And we listened to hundreds, if not thousands, of demo tapes. As soon as I heard Dan, I just knew immediately. So this is a guy that I can work with and write with. And the whole concept of that band was the quintessential all-American rock band.
Yeah.
So I wanted guys that could not only play great, but could contribute to the direction of the band as writers, and they looked good, had stage charisma, the whole thing. And Dan, what I loved about Dan, he had a sort of a youthful innocence. Free Ride is a good example, you know, of that type of vibe. And then Ronnie Montrose, on the other hand, the lead guitarist, he had a dark kind of edge. He was really like unpredictable, and I liked the contrast of bands are, you know, a lot about chemistry. And
so you had Rick and Ronnie Montrose.
Well, Rick was in the band after, toward the end, at the very end of the band. Ronnie dropped out of it, and Rick came in. The same thing happened with White Trash, my first band.
Yeah.
Floyd Radford was the original guitar player in that band, but Rick Derringer played in it at the end. And then it was the Edgar Winter group with Rick Derringer for a while. So.
And then you kind of wore glam clothes. You were kind of into the glammy stuff, right? Like sequin. I remember seeing Glittery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, David Bowie, Alice Cooper,
Yeah.
you know, the groups that we played with. And at that point, it was just so much fun getting into that. It was so different, you know, from what I had been doing. And, you know, I loved White Trash, and it was a great R&B band, and it had a real authentic feel. But I just, you know, I wanted the band. I didn't want to just keep playing old Otis Redding songs forever.
Yeah.
And I wanted that band to evolve like the Beatles did.
Yeah.
You know, and that was basically the reason for putting together the Edgar Winter group. And Rick had been, you know, he produced all my early albums and played in bands. So he, you know, it was inevitable that would happen. You know,
So
down the road.
your roots are blues, then, right?
Our blues, absolutely.
You and your brother.
Absolutely blues. Well, you know, I started out in radio at the age of 4. Johnny and I used to play ukuleles and sing Everly Brothers songs, and we went on a local radio show called the Uncle Willie Show. And I can't even remember back that far, because I remember doing that show when I was 6. But my mother used to tell me, "Oh, you all went on that show when you were 4." So, and here I am back again.
Yeah. Old Uncle Willie.
Old Uncle Willie.
Coming at you one time.
And Matilda on the organ. It's called a Tilda. But hey, I've got some incredible, amazing, exciting news. And this is hot off the presses, or tangled up in the web, or caught in, you know, I just signed a record deal with a gentleman named Bruce Quarto of Quarto Valley Records, which is a relatively new label. He's doing some things with Paul Rogers, but there was a lot of you know, I've had a lot of requests to do a Johnny Winter tribute album.
Yeah.
And it just never felt right up until this time. And Johnny passed away so unexpectedly, and we were scheduled to do a tour together, and you know, I thought it was going to be sad and difficult, but it turned out to be really so much fun. And everybody on that tour, at the end of the show, we would all get together and play some Johnny songs, and it turned out to be a great source of strength and comfort. But when I was approached to do this, like all the, it was, standard record companies, and I just felt like it was commercial interest. And when I met Bruce, he just really he said, anything you want to do, we just want to do this album for Johnny and make it the best. If you want to go to England, if there's no limitations, and that's what I loved, is that total freedom to make whatever kind of record. So I just called up, to test the waters. I called up Joe Walsh, of course, Jane's Gang and the Eagles, and Billy Gibbons with ZZ Top, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, another great guitarist, Joe Bonamassa, and they all said they were interested in doing it. So that's a good start right there. So I'm really excited about doing that. And of course, I'm gonna ask Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, and who knows if any of those people will do it. But I think amazingly, like when I was in Europe with Ringo, in his all-star band, there so many people were asking just about that, and it's blues is so much more highly respected over in Europe, than it is here in the States. But people were asking about, when are you going to do a Johnny Winter tribute? So it's coming up. So
all right,
get ready to rock and roll.
All right, all right. Was you close with your bro?
Yeah, we were inseparable, and as kids, we were super close, and we grew up, playing together, and we drifted apart, in our careers because our music was different. Johnny, the thing, Johnny, he had the dream. He read he read band, he watched American Bandstand and read all the magazines, and he was Johnny Cool Daddy Winter with the shades and the guitar and all of that. And I was kind of like I was the weird kid that played all the instruments.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed, learning the songs and showing everybody in the band, showing, their parts. And so, yes, we were extremely close. And
did you have like a lot of other brothers in music? Did you like fight a lot? There's a lot. Anyone else where there's two guys, they always seem to fight, brothers in bands.
Yeah, no, we didn't do that because Johnny loved the spotlight, and I was more of an instrumentalist back then. I didn't even consider myself a singer, and I was more interested in jazz and classical music than I was in rock and roll.
Yeah.
But we never got into we were competitive. There was some sibling rivalry, he could beat me in bowling, I could beat him in chess, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But not in bands.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not real competitive then.
Yep.
I like his version of what's the Stone song he does live, Johnny?
Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Yeah, that's a good track.
It's a great one, and I'm gonna put that on the tribute album for sure.
Yeah.
I do that. In my set. I do that. It's one of the songs. Like at the end, I'll do like Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo or Still Alive and Well or Highway 61. Sometimes songs that are identified with Johnny. So
why did you call Frankenstein?
Good question. That it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to shorten it up here. I wrote the song years before, the riff to it, and this is when I was playing with Johnny, and nobody even knew he had a brother, and he had invited me up to New York to play on his first couple of albums. And I met his manager, Steve, who introduced me to Clive Davis, who was the president of CBS at the time. And as it developed, like Johnny invited me to sit in with his band, and since I was mainly an instrumentalist, I came up with this so that's a cool bluesy riff, and it's real simple. And I played Hammond B3, and then I played an alto sax solo, and then we had two sets of drums on stage, and I did a dual drum solo with his drummer, and then Johnny, would play the first part of the set with his trio, and now I'm going to bring on my little brother Edgar. Oh, well, there's two of them. Little albino humor there.
Yeah.
And, we played that song. We called it the Double Drum Song, was its name, because of the two sets of drums. And, promptly forgot it. We played a version of it at Woodstock. We played at Albert Hall in London. And then with the synthesizer, I thought, wow, I bet that old riff, would sound really cool.
Let's hear
it. The riff is, on the piano, it sounds like. So that's basically the deal. But when you do it on synth, then you've got like, in a laboratory once upon a time, at work was a doctor named Frankenstein. So that's basically it. Then they've got some other.
How's your volume? Is your volume good?
Yeah, it's fine. Then it's some other sounds on here.
Oh, baby. That's great.
And then you got like
Sounds like Miami Vice.
these other. That's I call that Frank Solo or Frank Solo, and then this was the Acid Bath was the name of this. And there was this kind of saucer sweet thing.
Yeah, baby. Rock and roll. Da-na-na.
Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
So that's a good demonstration of the synthesizer. And the thing was we never even had any intention of recording the song, because it was like one of those things. When I got the idea for the strap, I walked out on stage and it was just one of those rock and roll moments. So I said, now we got to find a song. So after I got the idea of using that riff with the synthesizer back then, you had to use patch chords, and you had to understand wave synthesis, and it was not like keyboards today have. It's all digital, and there are thousands of sounds. But you had to design the sounds and figure them out. So when I figured out that bubbly sound, I said, well, so I wrote a different section, to accommodate that, and then the part, I said, well, we got to stick that in there. That's. I liked all those. People were using synthesizers to emulate the sounds of already existing instruments, like to be a piano or to be a string section or a horn section. And I loved all those old sci-fi movies like Forbidden Planet with theremin and weird synth stuff. So I said, let's see what never before heard sounds we can create with it. And so it got to be about a half an hour long because we kept adding, adding parts to it. And we never thought about recording it because I thought, well, the strength of the Edgar Winter group lay in the co-writing between Dan Hartman and myself. And I thought Free Ride, that sounded like the hit to us. And it got toward the end of the project, and I was talking to Rick, and he said, well, maybe we could do something with that instrumental, because back then the cardinal rule with tape is always rolling, because you'd come in the studio with 2 or 3 songs, and you'd actually sit down and create an album in the studio. And I think that's what made that era so magical, the 60s and 70s, is that you could do that. There were, there was very little intervention from record companies. Nobody was looking over your shoulder. You could just do whatever you wanted. So we had 20-minute versions, 2 or 3 of them. And back in that day, the only way to edit something was to physically cut the master tape. Yeah. So was like cutting a diamond. If you messed it up, it was gone, and you'd run a safety, but you'd lose a generation.
Right.
The quality was gone. So it was a great excuse to just get even more blasted than usual and have a big end of the project. Rock and roll! Party! Yeah! Party time. So it was lying all over the control room, draped over the backs of chairs and on the console and on the couch, and we were trying to figure out how to put the pieces back together and which things to use. And Chuck, the drummer, mumbled the immortal words, "Wow, man, it's like Frankenstein." Drawing the analogy of an arm here and a leg facing me. Wow. As soon as I heard it, that's it, Frankenstein. So the monster was born.
That's a great story.
Yeah, well, thank you.
What year was the, to me, the 70s, like 72 was like the sweet year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was it. That's when we
so much good stuff came out in '72.
Yeah, the late 60s and early 70s. It's kind of like the 70s. I agree with you. That early 70s was not at all like the end of the 70s.
Right.
So it's kind of like it should have gone from 65 to 75, rather than 60s and 70s.
Well, 76 weren't bad either. Just saying. But my favorite time for
I agree with you. 72 was a great year. It was a great year.
You got a gig on the 16th in Riverside at the Romano Concert Lounge. Are you going to be doing your tribute to your brother at this one, or are you just playing this concert?
We'll do something at the end, as I mentioned, but we'll be doing everything you'd expect to hear from Edgar Winter, going back to Tobacco Road, traditional blues songs that I popularized with Johnny, and has the long, never-ending scream and all kinds of vocal, scat, guitar, trade-off, call and response stuff in there. And, of course, we'll be doing the indestructible monster Frankenstein and the ever-popular Free Ride and songs from our last CD, Rebel Road. We got a lot of cool songs on that one.
Well, let me just give a little rundown. June the 9th, you're playing in Saratoga at Mountain Winery with Eric Bird and the Animals. On the 10th, you're playing in Morro Bay at the Siren. On the 15th of June, you're playing San Diego at Humphreys with Eric Bird and the Animals. And as I said, on the 16th, you're playing Riverside. Let's play your brother. We're here with We're here with Edgar Winter. We're going to play Johnny Winter, Jonesy's Jukebox, KLOS. That was Johnny Winter. We're here with Edgar Winter. We're going to visit the Duke. When we come back, he's going to tell us some good stories about Woodstock.
Title sponsor, the law offices of Sweet James Bergner.
Contact your local
Jonesy's Jukebox is back.
On the Rock of Southern California, 95.5 KLOS.
Hello, we're here with Edgar Winter. You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. So, Edgar, what was you going to talk about, Woodstock?
Yes, Woodstock changed my life. And, prior to that, as I had mentioned, I was more interested in jazz and classical, and I was an instrumentalist. I was a serious musician. Thankfully, I've gotten over that. But up to that point, when I was young, I took it so seriously, and it was sort of, music was my own sort of private escape world.
Yeah.
And, I didn't see well enough to play sports, and it gave me a sense of identity.
Sure.
And it was a thing that I could do. And I think just being so internalized like that, it was like that world. The thing I've always loved about music is when I play, it takes me out of myself, and it makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger, and I think it does that for others as well. When you hear a great song, you're transported back, to the time when you first heard it, but you're right there in the moment of whatever that is occurring, and it's just great, when that happens, whether it's in live performance or otherwise, But
so what was it about? Yeah,
at Woodstock, what happened to me, it was just one of those transfiguring moments. And I was like asleep in a press trailer. There was no organization to the whole thing. And they just shook me awake and said, okay, can you all go? They were just looking for anybody that, that could go on, that could play. So, and in the middle of the set, I just looked out over this just endless sea of humanity and seeing all those people joined together in that unique way. The whole thing was set against the social backdrop of civil rights and the peace movement, and it just it changed my whole thinking about music. Before, I'd always thought, well, this is my own personal world, but it made me realize that music is really a force and a power that can reach out and transcend boundaries and change things, and it made me feel like, I could actually write songs and become more of an artist. And as a result of that, I wrote the song that I'm going to play for you here in a minute. It's a song called "Dying to Live," and it's my favorite song. And after, Janice died, Jimmy died, a lot of people were dying, and I think here in the West, we have such a negative, fearful idea of death. But I wanted to write a song, and at that time, it just seemed like, for me, it was one of the most real and personal songs. And I'd like to dedicate this song to my wife, Monique, because she saved my life when I met her back in '78, and she's kept me grounded. We married every year on our anniversary and have been happily, faithfully, and ecstatically married. So I'm going to start this with a little classical piece, and then that's from my first album, Entrance, and then I'm going to go into Dying to Live. So here we go.
Why am I fighting to
until I'm ready to die.